Okay, hi. So today we're going to be talking about the author Ottessa Moshfegh. So this video is going to act as a guide to the author Ottessa Moshfegh. I'm going to be talking through the synopsis of all of her books for the most part, and kind of comparing and contrasting them, and kind of helping you, hopefully, to make a determination of if Ottessa Moshfegh is the right author for you, and if so, which books to start with. So let's get into it. So Ottessa Moshfegh has been in the writing scene for over a decade, with her first book, novella, McGlue, coming out in 2014, followed by her first debut novel, Eileen, coming out in 2015. She is a actively writing author with books coming out every 2 to 4 years. Eileen was followed by her current only short story collection, Homesick for Another World, which is the only thing in this list that I have not read. And then her most known book, My Year of Rest and Relaxation, in 2018, Death in Her Hands in 2020, and Lapvona in 2022. So I'm going to talk through briefly the synopsis of each of the books, and I'll have all of the parts of the chapters of this video tagged. So if there are certain parts that you want to skip to, it should be easy to find what you're looking for. So McGlue, I read quite a while ago, so my synopsis is going to be fairly sparse given the fact that I was not making booktube videos when I made this or when I read this book, so I don't have any notes on it. So McGlue is a novella that takes place in the 1850s in Salem, Massachusetts in part, but some of it also takes place on a ship. You follow a male protagonist who is a drunkard who may have killed his friend, but he is a seemingly unreliable narrator given his intoxication state, and the book kind of follows from there, ending up in Salem and him being put on trial. This book, from what I remember, takes place over the course of a few months. And McGlue is a very unlikable protagonist, and this is something Ottessa Moshfegh does quite often. She writes to the times, so given people's sentiments towards other people of other races and cultures and sexualities in the 1850s, you see those sorts of prejudices existing very clearly on the page. So if you do not like that, I'm not even sure if Ottessa Moshfegh is the right author for you at all, but I would say sometimes this one is a little bit more directly racist and homophobic from what I recall than some of her others. All right, next we're going to talk about Eileen. I read this earlier this year. This book takes place also in the Northeast. You're going to find that a lot with her books. This one takes place seemingly somewhere in New York or Massachusetts, close to New York City, but in a kind of a smaller suburb or a smaller town. It takes place over the course of a week, and it is about a younger woman in her 20s who lives with her father, who is a drunkard, and she works in a boys' correctional institute. And a new psychiatrist who is female comes to work, and she kind of becomes fascinated with her, and their relationship begins, and that's just kind of where the book goes. This takes place in the 1960s, so it's another one that has a historic setting. Another thing that you'll see across Ottessa Moshfegh's books. I would say similarly, the protagonist is not a very likable person, and I think that something that Ottessa Moshfegh does a lot is write kind of the grossness of humans. There's a lot of talk of her body's functioning and her uncomfortability with how her body functions, and her smell and stuff like that. It gets kind of into the details there. Yeah, and seemingly she's just overall a kind of unlikable protagonist. She is kind of gross, like I talked about with the body stuff, very prideful, very judgmental of other people. and also quite impressionable, having lived a relatively sheltered life. Her next book is My Year of Rest and Relaxation. In this, you follow a female protagonist in her later 20s, so a few years older than the protagonist of Eileen. And she lives in New York City. It takes place in 2000 and 2001 over the course of a year. And you follow her as she decides to stop working because she is financially independent and does not have to due to the death of her parents. And she decides to just kind of hibernate for a year. That involves a lot of drugs. It involves a lot of blackouts and her trying to piece back together the things that have happened because she does not remember them. And a relationship with her only friend, who is really seemingly for the most part of the book the only person checking in on her. And you follow her judgment of her friend and her judgment of the people around her when she does interact with other people as well. Okay, so her next book is Death in Her Hands. This follows an elderly female protagonist who, before the book starts, her husband passes away, and she sells the place that she lived with him and moves into a kind of small cabin on a large property in seemingly someplace in the Northeast in a more rural area. And she, at the beginning of the book, while walking her dog, finds a letter that says, her name was Bagda. Nobody will ever know who killed her. It wasn't me. Here is her dead body, but there was no dead body around. And she seemingly becomes obsessed with this notion of Magda and who she was and what could have led to her death and what kind of life she was leading. And it takes place over a short period of time. And is very internally focused. There's almost no dialogue with other people. And with all of these, I believe with McGlue, but I don't remember, you are in the first person perspective for the entirety of it. Okay, and then the last one is Lapvona. Lapvona is, setting-wise, is medieval. It takes place in the town or fiefdom of Lapvona, where you're following a younger boy as a protagonist who lives with an abusive father and has never known his mother, and something happens and he gets traded to the lord who oversees Lapvona. You see a lot of death. It's very disgusting. If you wanted to watch a more in-depth video of it, I have a full video devoted for it, questioning who the heck this book was for. But yeah, overall, pretty disgusting book. More the vileness of the people around your protagonist as opposed to just your protagonist. Everyone's kind of gross in a different way. And again, there's a thing with like bodies and like the grossness of what you can do with a body and like what bodies do. I don't know how to say that. It's just, yeah, she likes to do this in her books. Okay, and then I have not read Homesick for Another World, but this is a short story collection. I'm not going to comment on it because I have not read it. So I want to talk through the similarities between these books, which some of them you could probably pick up. Most of them have a setting that takes place in the Northeast of the United States. So Massachusetts, like New England, some a little bit of New York. So this makes sense. Ottessa Moshfegh is from that area, and I believe did a lot of her schooling there, may still reside there, I'm not sure. So she definitely picks that as a comfort setting. Though I won't say that the locale plays a lot into the setting. Like she doesn't go deep into her settings. Some of them take place during winters, so you get like much colder weather and snow and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say her setting really is an intricate part of her writing. I think another similarity you can see is the kind of judgmental first-person perspective. None of these protagonists are really likable at all. They're all pretty judgmental of other people. You follow them in a first-person perspective, so there's a lot of internal monologue. My experience with that is that it's a very close first person where you're in their head and you're following every single thought pattern. The most that this happens in is Death in Her Hands. Like, you are following rabbit holes of this woman's thought processes. You also kind of experience it in really in a lot of the other books, but Death in Her Hands by far takes the cake on that. I think that for me, something that's a little bit challenging about that is, if you don't like reading an unlikable protagonist, that's just gonna be a challenge for you. But I think the part that is a little bit challenging for me is it's such a intensely focused in the mind first person narrative, but it never feels viscerally there. Like, you never really feel like you're in their body. They might say their hand was shaking, or they might throw up because of something that happened, but it's not like you really feel their emotions all that much of what got to them. So I think that with the protagonists being unlikable and with the protagonists not having a good sense of emotion being conveyed, it makes it even harder for people to connect with these protagonists. I think that for me personally, it works best with My Year of Rest and Relaxation, because she is supposed to be fairly dissociated the whole time because she's like on drugs, and you never really know when she's sober. And so that felt intentional, but after I've read all her books, I kind of question if that was intentional or if that was just Ottessa Moshfegh's writing style. I think that another similarity between all of them is that there's not much forward momentum with the plots. There might be something that it drives towards in the end, but you don't really know what that's going to be while you're getting there. It's very ambling. And you're just kind of going through the motions of life with whatever protagonist you're following. And if you're into something that's plot focused or plot forward, I would say that her books don't really meet that mark super well. Okay, next I want to go through the Goodreads rankings, because I think that Ottessa Moshfegh is clearly not the author for a lot of people. Her highest rated books, and they share a ranking at 3.61 stars, which I think is quite low to start as her highest, is My Year of Rest and Relaxation and Homesick for Another World. Following that up at 3.56 is Eileen. Then at 3.31, so quite a drop, is McGlue. And at 3.24 is Death in Her Hands, which does surprise me. I think that McGlue being her first book, people don't really go back to it, and so maybe that's why it's not as low. But this ranking does surprise me a bit. I would give a ranking, but I honestly don't think that I have a true ranking of, I could call one the worst and in any sequential order. I don't feel very strongly about a lot of these books, though I will say I have a clear favorite, and that is My Year of Rest and Relaxation. It is the first book I read by her, and I knew I wanted to make this video, and so I actually reread it right after reading some of her other books. So my reading order was My Year of Rest and Relaxation, McGlue, Lapvona, Eileen, and Death in Her Hands. And I've read Lapvona, Eileen, and Death in Her Hands within the last 6 months. And then right after that, within the past 3 weeks, I reread My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I can safely say that My Year of Rest and Relaxation is my number one. I think that the things that are very clearly Ottessa Moshfegh, that first person narrative, that rambling through their thought processes with them, that dissociation from their body from like like very like hands off, like keeping you at a distance while keeping you in every single thought they have, which is a confusing thing to say. I think that really works well with the plot of My Year of Rest and Relaxation. So I think that in terms of what kind of reader you are, if you're still interested in her books based on what I've said, I would say if you like that messy millennial type of book that was popular maybe 5 to 10 years ago, then My Year of Rest and Relaxation is the one for you. I would say that if you're really like being deeply in someone's head or just like an elderly protagonist, I think that Death in Her Hands might be for you, though there are things that happen at the end of this book that I will just say for a lot of readers, they don't like to read that thing. I don't want to say what it is, but just keep that in mind before you go into it. I don't know who Lapvona is for. I still cannot tell you who would like that book. I don't think you can really come at it from a historical fiction perspective and really enjoy it, given the fact that it doesn't really explore the setting at all. And overall, it's just very disgusting. So, I mean, if you're kind of looking for that more edgy book, like maybe this is the one for you. I think that Eileen has like a dark kind of element to it, something that feels like you would read it in the dead of winter because that's when it takes place. When you're cozied up and you kind of want to read something a little bit darker, a little bit grittier, maybe that would be a book for you. It explores female relationship dynamics when you like meet someone that you just think seems so much cooler than you'll ever be and you're trying to impress them. I think that if you want to read something like that, this might be the right book for you. And I don't really think I would ever recommend starting with McGlue at all. But if a drunken sailor going to his trial for maybe killing his friend sounds like something you'd want to read, then maybe it is for you. I don't know. I think that I want to end this video with what I'm hoping for Ottessa Moshfegh's future as a writer. Clearly, she's still writing novels, so she can really develop and change as an author. I can see that she's attempted to develop into different settings, following different sorts of people, but for me, at the end of the day, they all feel similar. And I think that it's because her writing style is very consistent, and I would love to see some branching out. Sometimes her protagonists make her feel like it's kind of like a one-trick pony act. I don't think every protagonist needs to be highly unlikable. I think that having some redeeming qualities to someone is interesting. I think that just like having an all good character, having a seemingly mostly bad character is flat and falls flat. And so I would love to see her play with character a little bit more as she continues to write. Obviously, she can do whatever she wants. She's the famous writer, not myself. But that's kind of what I hope to see come from her career. Because if it continues to be books like this, I probably won't consistently be picking them up or be really intrigued to. But that's all I have for this video. I hope that this was helpful as a guide. I have another guide that I've made on Sarah Waters, who is a very different author. So if you have any interest in that, I will link it. But that is all I have. So until next time, happy reading.